Then it will mean you'll be disappearing off for 5 minutes. Hey, welcome everybody to Talking Niagara this morning on March the 28th. So, have we got a few things for you? But before we go there, you sent me the thing about this. We talked about this place before, Crawford Lake becoming an Anthropocene, or the Anthropocene is here. They're basically saying it's ground zero for Crawford Lake should be seen as ground zero for the Anthropocene era. And explain what the Anthropocene era is.
The Anthropocene era is that era which is designated as the era that is most affected by a particular animal, and that animal is us. Different eras throughout time have been designated due to the geology that's going on, the life that has come onto the land. One way or another, but we are now in an era called the Anthropocene, and I think this is now official. Well, and actually, what makes it
it though? Is it official? Because they're saying in early March, the Subcommission on Quaternary Stratigraphy voted 12 against and 4 in favour and 2 abstentions to reject a proposal that would have established the current era in which humans altering the planet as a formal epoch in the Earth's geological timetable.
Well, the reason why I put it there is because I think I found an article that says that it was actually accepted. This
article has been updated. This article was updated, and it may have originally said it was accepted, but by the Subcommission on Quaternary Stratigraphy has voted against it. But there's still about 3 or 4 other bodies that are going to be looking at supporting this.
Yeah, so I guess it's still up in the air. What they're suggesting is that the Anthropocene started, and they're calling Crawford Lake.
Yeah, they're saying the Anthropocene era started 73 years ago in the 1950s, when
actually 1950, the year 1950, 50.
Yep.
They say that because okay.
Yeah, and they're basically okay, but they're all right. Then they're basically saying this. Crawford Lake has been endowed with a golden spike, a literal brass marker that signifies the planet shifted in about 1950 from one geological time to the next.
Yes, so the golden spike is kind of like the golden spike is the kind of thing that they drive in to begin a railroad and to end a railroad kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's very, very symbolic. Well, the golden spike, they want Crawford Lake to be emblematic. The starting point of that particular lake has to be designated as the starting point of the Anthropocene, or as the emblem of the Anthropocene, because the layers in the bottom of the lake are very well kept. As a matter of fact, in Crawford Lake, you can't go swimming, you can't go boating, you can't do fishing, you can't do anything, because Crawford Lake is actually a protected lake, and because of its uniqueness, that you don't want nobody, you're not allowed to mess with Crawford Lake. And Crawford Lake came into fame, or at least fame among people who were interested in that kind of thing, when they did core samples of the lake's bottom and found that there must have been a thriving Indian community or a native indigenous community close by, because in the layers they found all kinds of corn pollen, which of course is not really that native to the area. It has to be cultivated. You don't find it growing wild. And so they find all of this corn pollen in there, and they thought, well, somebody's been cultivating corn here around 1400 or thereabouts, and so then they went to search for a community, indigenous community, and they found where it must have been. And there's the kind of correlations you can get with core samples. A core sample of a lake could tell you there are pollen here that wouldn't regularly be here naturally. So that is human. That is a result of human habitation.
Yeah.
Cultivated corn. If you have cultivated corn, you have human habitation. They went to look for the evidence of that, and they found it. They found a native community, and they wouldn't have gone looking for it if they didn't know that. If the core sample hadn't told them that.
Well, they found. What you mean is they found archaeological remains of a native community.
Yes, yeah, where it would have been, yeah. And probably had been there for hundreds of years. I don't know how long. Usually, because corn took a lot out of the soil, I think native communities moved a fair amount, so they would stay a couple of generations in a place and then move on. Corn has ability of sucking the life out of the soil pretty quick if you don't replenish it. Corn is one of those things that reduce the has to be continually fertilized.
Yeah.
So you only get a couple of generations. We find that happening in indigenous areas in South and Central America, where new cultivated land is burnt, the forest is burnt down, and then the land is cultivated, but it only produces for a couple of generations before it loses its nutrients, and you can't get good crops out of it thereafter. And the native groups then go on to burn other parts of the forest to expand their agricultural range. This is a big problem where artificial fertilization hasn't happened yet, and more of the rainforest is being burnt down. It's not all industry; it is native groups doing it. And but in North America at the time, the populations were very small, so they would probably stay. So obviously, there was a community that stayed several generations in an area, and that was marked by the layer of the core layer in the layer of the core.
Yeah.
And that would be an Anthropocene indication right there, when somebody was doing that core, saying, well, there is evidence of humans right there in the 1400s. So they changed the area. They cultivated the area. That means they must have knocked down the forests, whatever, and cultivated certain parts of the area. But the Anthropocene they're talking about now is that which began after the nuclear explosions in Hiroshima, because you can find that layer in that lake. And I know we've talked about this Crawford Lake before, but it's still part of the conversation, and that's why I put it there. Particularly now, my friends, France has just made a deal with Brazil to fix this problem and help the rainforest. Yeah, I don't really buy that too much, Mike. I don't think so. Like, France has sort of stepped in. I don't like Macron one bit. When they had the forest fires in the Amazon, he put on his Facebook page fires pictures of fires and videos of fires that happened 10 years before the fires that he was talking about. Same thing with one of them was movie stars, DiCaprio. But at least DiCaprio said these are pictures of a previous fire. So Macron, I don't trust him too much, and I don't know. He's probably trying to sell something to France, from France to Brazil. We will fix your forest. You buy our wine.
Well, that's how these international deals are done. You know that.
Yeah. My name is Macron. I want some wood for my vote, but don't tell anyone, and I will give you some wine.
Yeah. The only trouble is you pour wine on the fires and they burn.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
This was not French wine. Does not burn forests.
Okay.
French wine only burns down.
Basically, what they're saying, what's important about this lake is it actually, because of the nature of the lake, you can't go boating in it. You can't, you can't go swimming in it and things like that. And it's not being developed. The whole point about this lake is it actually acts as a time clock, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's what is unique about this particular lake. When they take core samples of this particular lake, it preserves what's going on in the world very well. So you can see where the atomic explosions happened. You could tell, you could see where Chernobyl happened, and all these things. Like we really don't see that in our day-to-day life, but those things are going on. And whatever it's recording now would be the industrial process that has happened in North America, and it'll probably show spikes and valleys of industrial refuse of some kind or another. So it's very, very important, and so that's why I brought it in there, particularly at a time now where you have so many spikes and valleys in thought about what is happening to our planet, and a lot of overstatement and understatement of what's happening. And in a place like this is an attempt to make it clear that the planet, for the very first time, has been affected by a single living thing, and that is humans. Humans have no other living thing has been able to make such a profound effect on the planet as a whole, and that's why they want the next era to be called the Anthropocene. Oh, Randy.
Right, there's a little weasel. Have you ever noticed these country? No, I'm not getting that comment.
Country leaders are mostly little guys. Yeah, you cannot be the leader of France, or well, there are some exceptions, but most leaders of France can only be 5'5" or under.
Well, it was set by Napoleon, wasn't it? Okay.
Well, I guess so. I guess Napoleon wasn't the shorty that that everybody said he was, but I'm not sure.
He was 5'7", I believe.
5'7", which was even a little taller than normal for the day.
Yeah, in that day and age, actually was 5'7" was actually just was actually on the taller side, right?
About 5'5" was the average height.
Average height was 5'5", and so he was actually 2 inches taller than that, even though he might be small by today's standard. Anyway, let's move on. If you're looking for an Easter egg hunt this Easter, we're only a day away now. You've got a basket full of them. You've got enough to fill a basket. So let's quickly go over the ones we've got. So The traditional one at Fireman's
Yeah,
Park.
you spell it out. I'm going to go get that coffee. Talk about it.
Yep. The traditional one at Fireman's Park in Niagara Falls is on Friday between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. So bring your own basket and to collect your treasures. Money and food donations will be accepted to Project Share. So that's run by the Stanford Center Volunteer Firemen's Association. And, so that's one that happens every Good Friday. Moving on, you've got the Township of West Lincoln hosting Easter activities at West Lincoln Community Center in on West Street in Smithville on Friday between 9 and midday. Right, you've got the Easter Egg Creation Station in Lincoln, which is at 38 Main Street in Jordan, which is the Lincoln Museum and Cultural Center. And they're hosting an open house with Easter egg painting between Friday and Sunday. And drop in activities are between noon and 4 p.m. So there'll be wooden Easter egg painting, scavenger hunts, and crafts and museum tours. Merrittville Speedway, as always, is holding an Easter egg hunt. This is on 2371 Merrittville Highway, and they host a free family event on Saturday featuring carnival games, bouncy castle, race cars, and all ages colouring contests with cash prizes, kids and adult prize giveaways, and more. Food and carnival games will cost money. Of course, they're going to make money out of this deal. The egg hunts are done by age group, so therefore there's one for ages 1 to 5 at 10 a.m., 6 to 10 at 11 a.m., 11 to 15 at noon, and families at 1 p.m. So there you go. Donations are accepted at the gate, and the stuff goes to Niagara Nutrition Partners, which supports more than 201 schools in the region. St. Catharines, they've got a St. Farmers Market. In the Farmers Market, they host an egg extravaganza on Saturday, 9 a.m. till 1 p.m. And it's for activities for all ages, market samples, some prize giveaways for kids. And there's an Easter egg hunt and story walk in Thorold at the public library. And downtown Thorold BIA host a free event on Saturday from 10 a.m. till noon at the library on 14 Ormond Street North and downtown. The registration closed on March 23rd. There's a bunny trail in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Niagara Nursery School and Childcare Centre between 9 and 11 on Saturday. There's an Easter egg hunt in Port Coburn, which takes place at the Vale Health and Wellness Centre at 550 Elizabeth Street between 10 a.m. and noon. Right, and there's further activities that will be happening from 10 till 4 at the same place. And Fenwick Centennial Park has one Saturday, 11 a.m. There's also a breakfast with the Easter Bunny in Fort Erie. The Optimist Club hosts a breakfast event Saturday at its location at 1555 Gilmore at 9 a.m. till noon. $8 entry includes 3 pancakes and 2 sausages. You can get your picture taken with the Easter Bunny. There you go. Ha! That was it. So if you got interest or you know people that are coming, hey, take them there.
Are they? Are there going to be? Is there going to be any bigotry here? Is there going to be adult bigotry? Can it, like, say an older guy go and get some Easter eggs and
Oh, that's probably not allowed.
and meet the Easter Bunny? Is there? Is
Well,
there going to
I
be
think you're
diversity at this like is there going to be ageism, man? I mean, like sort of if a
I
guy
don't know.
wants to get
I don't know.
some
You can probably go
chocolate
meet.
for himself.
You can probably go and buy to the Optimist Club in Fort Erie. You can probably go and buy breakfast. Hey Dave, you can go buy breakfast there. It's only
I'm
$8.
talking eggs, man. I'm talking chocolate eggs.
You're not allowed to go.
Is this a restricted event for like? I mean, can a guy go get some chocolate eggs, or
No,
is he going to be
no,
looked at? And
no,
is he going to be
no,
bigoted? No.
no. You go buy them from the shop. You go
You see what I
donate them to
mean?
the kids.
I'm asking for diversity in Easter egg hunts, man. That's what I'm asking for. Like I see this as ageism,
Well,
right
actually, there
here,
is one.
totally.
There is one.
All that chocolate and I can't have any.
Yeah. Well, here you go. Egg hunts in the Merrittville Speedway, right? Are done by age group. So ages 1 to 5 at 10 a.m., 6 to 10 at 11 a.m., 11 to 15 at noon, and families after 1 p.m. So take your sons along. You'll be fine. And
Yeah.
grand.
Well, yeah, we'll clean up, man. We'll clean up. Like
I can see. I can see it
we
right
can
now.
run
I
interference
can
with the
see it
other
right
families
now.
because they're going to bring small kids. I got big kids. I got fully grown sons,
I can see
right?
it
So we
right
can run
now.
interference.
Here's the Wheeler pincer movement, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Advancing across the field.
Some little out of the way, sister. Take Shorty there, that kitty you got. Get him out of here. That's my egg.
Yeah, the egg you just got in the basket, that's my egg.
Yeah, we can put. Yeah, we can kick the baskets out of the kids' hands. Oh, you spilt it. Scrambles.
Okay. So
Yeah, well, I guess I will. I guess I will be restricted another year.
well,
I'll have to talk to
what do you
Trudeau
expect?
about this.
What do you
There's
expect?
no diversity in egg hunts here in Niagara.
What do you expect? What do you expect? Okay, so moving on, Mark Miller, the immigration minister, is doing something different. He's basically saying he's letting fewer temporary residents come to Canada short term, while he's planning more immigration for the future. That seems an oxymoron.
Yeah, basically, the Liberals are in a situation where they cannot admit that they've brought too many people into too quickly.
Yeah.
They have this idea of getting by 2030 having 1/3 of all Canadians born outside of Canada. I think 30%, almost 1/3. So 30% of all Canadians having been born outside of Canada. That's their objective. They want to diversify and multi-ethnicize the country. They're finding it difficult to do that in Quebec because that their society is being challenged by immigrants, their culture, but they get away with it in the rest of Canada because they say, well, the rest of Canada has a open culture. They say we don't have a single culture. I'd like to argue with that, but that's the way to characterize English Canada as having an open culture, so that we can absorb as many people as possible. Now, this goes along in their ideological ideas to have a multi-ethnic society. In the United States, they've long had the idea of a melting pot kind of a thing, so anybody could come in no matter what, but they have to but they will adapt American values one way or another. In Canada, no, we go the other way, that you're allowed to keep all your particular cultural attitudes and religions and whatever else. We're trying to protect that, but we want 1/3 of the country to be born outside the country. I'm not so sure that's a great idea, and they want to do it fast. So take the
No, let's give up.
ideology away from it
Let's give up
for a
fast.
while.
Let's make sure that those that are coming, okay, in my view, those that are here need jobs. Those that are here need steady employment. Those that are here already, we need to basically make sure that they're all properly employed, that they're employed in the professions that they came with. And that's whether you're a refugee or whether you're an immigrant, an economic immigrant. The normal who come through the normal channels. We need to make sure that is viable. Without that, I don't believe that you can open the doors for future immigration. Right, and future immigration needs to be at a pace which can be accepted by the local labor market and by the local housing market. Because if you try to bring too many people in, you're going to have them hunting for jobs that don't exist, and hunting for houses that don't exist. The last thing you want is immigrant homeless.
Yeah, like I said, this is kind of the minister's way of
Yeah.
trying to say that they've brought too many people in
Well,
too fast, but not saying that. And
yeah,
Randy West says it's a liberal Ponzi scheme.
exactly.
Yeah. Now of course, the liberals know that or expect that most of the people they bring into the country will be voting for them, and because that's usually the way it is. Whatever
Yeah.
government was in
Well,
power when a person came into
exactly.
the country votes for that
Yeah. And
particular.
it's like I came in through the Harper government, so the assumption is that I would in 4 years' time, after I got my citizenship, have a natural tendency to vote for Harper's government, or for the Harper party.
Yeah, and because but the liberals play the game a little bit better. Liberals simply need to pay. This is from Randy West. The liberals simply need to pay for the retirement of now with new immigration, and the new immigration is not settled into the economy as anything more than a cost right now. Those are good points. Right now, immigration is costing us a whole lot of money, but it is designed to pay for the large retirees, the aging demographic of Canada. The baby boomers are all and there's not enough kids to replace us. People don't want to have kids anymore, so you got to immigrate, have people come into the country. And Mark Miller is is doing what no other immigration minister has done, letting fewer temporary residents into the country, because the temporary residents tend to be permanent residents in the long run. The temporary residents aren't the farm laborers that come and go. These are people that come in like students. Once they're in, they stay usually, and that's okay for the students from no matter whatever country, and they do very well in their studies, and then go off to get a good job and pay taxes and all that. That's fine. But what we end up doing is we get a lot of people we can't support. That's the idea anyway. Well, they are dropping babies like crazy to ensure they are Canadian while they're young or not have children
Canadian young
are
and not having children.
because there is no future. Well, yeah, that's the paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
Our children aren't having. Well, my kids aren't having any kids anytime, and I don't know if they ever will.
Well,
And
here's the irony: is that my grandmother, she had 32 grandchildren, and while she was alive, something like 11 great grandchildren, and her great grandchildren was up in the 60s, right? Ultimately, but yet I've got no grandchildren.
no, I don't expect to ever have any the way things are going either.
Yeah.
and that's because there is no the affordability, the expectations that we have. This is the first generation that will have less than their parents. For many generations going, my great grandfather had my great grandfather had more than my great grandfather. My great grandfather had more than his father, and so on and so forth. And I had more than my father, and but my kids cannot come to the level of material aspiration that I had achieved during my life at their stage of life, just because everything's more expensive. Yep. So and plus also new Canadians come in, and the hospital right now, like I said before, they're having kids like crazy now there. When they're asked where they're from, they don't tell they go to the hospital, have their babies in St. Catharines, and they won't tell anyone where they're from, but they do have money because they're not covered by the health system. And when they and the whole idea is to have a baby here, because if you have a baby here, it's harder to get rid of you.
Yep.
If you're an illegal. So they have babies, and they go down to the ATM machine to get the cash out to pay for the doctor and the anesthesiologist.
Yep.
And so they get the cash to do it, but they won't tell you. Most of them won't tell you where they're from or anything like that. But they're in Canada, and they're an asylum seeker or whatever they are, and they're having babies like crazy in Canada, because that's the whole point. Get a baby here, and you'll be able to stay.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Moving on. There's a Democrat who ran on abortion rights and IVF. He ran an Alabama special election, and I'm kind of put this up as kind of what? Alabama? He won an election in the South. It seems really kind of odd, because he won an Alabama seat in a long-held Republican district, notching a special election victory after after she entered a campaign promoting access to abortion and an IVF treatment.
Yeah. This is what the Republicans of it's kind of backfired on the Republicans. The Roe versus Wade has been reversed. In the 70s, it was considered a constitutional right for a woman to have an abortion. That has been overturned. And Ruth, who's that justice that died? Ruth Bader Ginsburg was her name?
Yeah, RBG, yeah.
She warned of this when she was a Chief Justice. She said that Roe versus Wade was a weak bill, and that it was very vulnerable to being overturned. And that is exactly what happened. And
I have to say that Dobbs versus Jackson is very poorly. It's a very poor. I read that decision about the overturning of Roe versus Wade, and I find Dobbs versus Jackson to be exceedingly biased and very conservative based, and a very poor decision. It lacks substance.
Well, Ginsburg said that it was Roe versus Wade was very vulnerable based on the fact that that there's a strong idea that those rights should be determined by the state.
Yeah,
that the state itself should be the one that determines that particular right, not the federal government. And based on that is how Roe versus Wade was overturned. So now the states can determine whether they want abortion or not, and states with very strong religious attitudes,
especially like Alabama.
What?
Especially Alabama would be one of those.
Yes, but where the hitch was is there are certain large black areas of of Alabama which would probably want the abortion thing to stay in, even though that they themselves are quite likely quite religious. There other states have taken that vote, that wanted to have the determination themselves and supported abortion rights. So it's kind of backfired on the Republicans.
Yeah.
In the long run.
That's what I mean.
I
This
think,
is something that this something that is just a blip in Alabama, or is it or is it basically something bigger?
I think Minnesota or some place like that
Well, you'd expect it.
voted for abortion rights independently, but they were also a state that wanted to make the determination themselves, so supported the discontinuance of Roe versus Wade, but supported the what Roe versus Wade, yeah, in their own state. So there's a couple of different things happening here. Some people who don't care one way or another about abortion say, technically speaking, it should be the jurisdiction of the state.
Yeah, they support. They're basically saying they support abortion, but it's a state jurisdiction.
Well, some are just don't care one way or another, but say that it should be a state decision. Others say that no, it should be a constitutional right to Roe versus Wade. I'm not so sure. The U.S. Constitution could be pretty, I don't know, not as straightforward. It's up to lots of interpretations. Well, of course, it was written in 1780. So what do you expect?
No, 1790. 1790. Yeah, no, 1780. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
it was 1780s.
It was the amendment. The first amendment was 1792, right? But since then, of course, we have not had a major amendment in the Constitution since the 60s.
Yeah, so there you have, so I don't know what to do with this. The thing is, let's say the Constitution of the United States is 250 years old, almost 240 years old, right? And in a pre-industrial society, in a land that was empty and huge, and actually at that particular time was only a fraction of the size it is today. So the conditions of which the Constitution was written will take a lot of interpretation for modern times. Abortion was at that particular time, of course, was thought to be an evil thing. You couldn't hang a woman back in those days if she was pregnant. Nowadays, you would say, well, that's not a life in her belly. You can hang her, or you can take for example, if the fetus is not thought to be a human until 5 months. I think in general terms for abortion, let's say you can't have an abortion after 5 months in any state, I don't think. So, but if a woman was accused of murder and then was supposed to be executed, if that woman then had a baby in her or had a embryo going on and it was only 4 months old, do you then kill the woman because the embryo inside her is?
I don't think you would ever execute that prisoner.
Yeah, but technically speaking, you could say it's okay to kill her because that is not identified as a human. Um,
I think there would
so
be major ethical problems with it. That's
yeah,
for sure.
I don't think
And the person who's flipping the switch or putting the injection in would probably not do it.
yeah, I wouldn't want to be that person. You probably could find a person that would do it, but I wouldn't want to be that person
No matter
because
how
I would
heinous
turn
the
it
crime.
down.
Yeah. No matter how
There
heinous
would
the
be
crime.
no governor that would allow that execution,
Yeah,
even though technically
they
what's
could.
in her belly isn't a human. So what would the difference be technically?
Yeah.
So
Anyway.
these are the kind of ideological hurdles that everybody has to
I put this
jump over.
yeah. I put this article up as a demonstration that we're in election year right now, and nothing seems as straightforward in the US, and nothing is as straightforward as people might think it is. Whatever your feelings on abortion rights or IVF, etc., nothing is as straightforward as you think it is, because clearly the people of Alabama think differently, right?
Yeah,
Or this
well,
part of Alabama.
yeah. So this was a kind of a surprise because the area had been strongly Republican for a very long time,
Yeah, yeah,
and based on the abortion thing, a Democrat won. That is an oxymoron. You have a solid Republican jurisdiction that has voted Republican for a long time, and under one major issue, a woman starts to go about and say, based on the abortion thing, Roe versus Wade, that was the basis of her candidacy, and in a Southern Bible Belt area
yeah.
that has been historically Republican, she wins. That's
Yeah.
got to be a big
And
eye opener for the GDP, and
it
we'll
has
see
to
how
be.
they're going to do
Oh
that
yeah,
when Trump comes up for an election.
absolutely. There's this is actually, it's like this popped out of me as like so strange that it has to, that we have to comment about it. We have to talk about it.
Yeah, and I think the GDP is trying to kind of figure out how do they keep their base and try to minimize the effects of their support for the abolition of Roe versus Wade. This is going to be a very tough problem for them, particularly when they're going to need the women's vote. Have a good weekend, you too, Mike.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So then let's move on again. So municipalities basically need to prepare for Niagara Health's big change. This is what the Niagara Health CEO and president Lynn Guerrero says, that we need to plan for the three-site model to become a reality in 2028. That that basically, here's the question. What she's talking about here is about change within the healthcare system within Niagara, and she's talking about how people in 28 will be working together in teams where they don't even know one another today. Well, hey, hang on, Miss Guerrero. I've worked in industries where we've had such change, and nobody makes announcements like this to the press 4 years in advance of when it happens. You might make the announcement 6 months after it happened. Say we changed all of our processes. We amalgamated four teams into one area, and we did this successfully, and no customer service problems at all. That's how most typical industry does it. The trouble is, what you're doing here, when you're doing it, announcing it 4 years before the time, you're actually giving a lot of people, particularly people in the health service, um, change phobia. And the
Well, what is the purpose of this announcement then? What do you think is the purpose?
basically she's just really coming on about this whole question that she's talking about the three hospital three site model, right? To become a reality in 28. I think she's basically, I don't really know what the purpose is. I really don't know. I think it's if she were an elected official, I'd say it's electioneering.
Well, like you said yourself, it's 4 years ahead, and yet it seems to be so peculiar that she's making that. And why do you think it's peculiar that she's doing that? Is she's trying to say that get on board now, get on board?
Yeah,
This
but
is a change that is going to happen, and you're just going to have to change your culture and your ideas, and start to get
but
used to the fact you're going to
I
have three
get that.
main centers.
Yeah, I get that she's going to be training staff. I get that there's probably not going to be any job losses, that there's going to be job transfers. But the fact that there's job transfers, all of a sudden now you've put frighteners into people, because nobody knows whether what's going to happen to their job. The person who's working in Grimsby Hospital, let's say, is now kind of, what is going to happen to my job? And even the person who's in St. Catharines, who might be in a specialist area, who doesn't, who's that specialist area is moving to Niagara Falls, let's say, they're thinking, well, I go by bus to work every morning. I don't drive. How am I going to be working in Niagara Falls?
Well, she's saying here that the municipalities have to sort of get on board here. She's saying, for example, the Niagara Health's plan includes a transit hub at the
Yeah,
site of the new Niagara Falls Hospital to make sure that we can handle and accommodate the buses. But she said that it will be up to Niagara Region to ensure buses arrive there. So basically, this is a call out, early call it now, something like that will
well,
take
I
would take
get.
a lot of time. That is a good
That I
announcement.
get, because there's going to have to be new bus routes in order to make the hospital. Because
So
I didn't.
that was a good announcement. That part of it you can
Yeah,
understand
that
why
part
she's
of it I
making it.
get. Yeah, because in order to get on a bus, so I'm getting on a bus. I've got to go to a short walk to Queen and Victoria, and I get on the bus there, and which takes me all the way to the hospital. Those sort of things. Yes, you've got to change your routes. Yes, you've got to plan that ahead, because in fact you've got to have those buses running now. Start to run now, not necessarily right this second, but next year you're going to have those buses running, or the year
Yeah,
after.
the whole planning. And here's something else. Like this is basically a warning to the municipalities, and I think that's why it's 4 years in advance. Why she's making this, that everybody has to get used to the fact that there's going to be a three hospital system. And she says residents have made concerns about how do you get to one of these hospitals. Remember, this is a pretty big area where
Yeah.
only three hospitals are taking care. So how do you get to the hospital during winter storms? Those things have to be addressed by the municipalities too. So
Absolutely.
she's saying we're going to be up and ready to go. We will be able to accommodate buses and anybody that comes here, but how are they going to get here? Are the municipalities prepared to send us to get the patients here through a bus system? Are the buses going to come here? And what are you going to do when in this vast area when you have severe storms, which we do have? So how are you going to get somebody
Oh
out of
yeah.
Fort Erie to get them
In
to the
fact,
hospital?
actually, that is actually, always the consideration. So you're going to have three hospitals: one in Niagara Falls, one in Welland, and um, one in St. Catharines. Obviously, having one in Welland um, simplifies the situation, because, well, somebody from Fort Erie, if they're downtown Fort Erie, they can drive up the QEW to get to Niagara Falls. If they're in western part of Fort Erie, Crystal Beach or something, they might want to be making their way to Welland, or if in Port Coburn, they'll be making their way to Welland. But that could actually be dangerous on a snowy day, where there's no snowplow support. Although that said, usually Sodom Road and the road down to Crystal Beach is actually well plowed, as is the main roads across to Welland from the main lateral roads across, because they're regional roads and they're usually fairly well plowed in the winter. But again, there's going to be times when they're not plowed.
You've got somebody, and there's a massive snowstorm, a huge blizzard in Fort Erie or Port Colborne. Massive amounts of blizzard of 77 like stuff, or not. It doesn't even have to be like that, but just massive snowstorm. What are you going to do? How are you going to get? There's somebody having seizures. How are you going to get them to Welland, all the way to Welland? How are you going to get them to Niagara Falls? And once you get there, you're going to find out that that particular hospital may not specialize in what problem you have. So you're going to have to be transferred, and then you're going to have to be transferred to another hospital. And that's what it says here. These hospitals will have each site will have specializations, and transfers between them will be provided at no cost to the patient. But how are you going to get that that patient that needs specialization to the St. Catharines Hospital from Port Colborne, where they're having seizures? First thing you do is you're going to get them. Randy West says they are announcing we are going to have to get used to less beds, not enough beds in 2028. Yeah, that's another thing she's pointed out too. She said that some of the beds that they got during COVID, they'll be able to keep, but there'll be less beds.
Yeah.
But right now, how do you get somebody there? Somebody's having seizures, frothing at the mouth. Who knows what's wrong with them? You got to get them to the hospital. And when you do get to the hospital, you find that they don't specialize in that particular
but you see,
problem.
The point being
seizures, so they have to go to another one. All this happening during a snowstorm. So how does the municipality adapt to that? How do you get snowmobiles set up and ready for emergencies like this? What do you do?
Well, again, okay, so for example, let's assume on that heart attack type situation that the heart attack trauma team or the specialists are actually in St. Catharines, but you come to Welland Hospital. So in Welland Hospital, you suffer a heart attack. Now the situation there is that they can do enough to stabilize you, but then they will actually pass you on to the specialists at St. Catharines.
Yes, and then if you have to have the open heart surgery, you go to Hamilton.
Yeah,
that's a lot of.
But isn't that a good thing that we have those choices?
Well, the fact of the matter is, if you're having a heart attack, you go to Welland, you're going to be stabilized there, but then you're going to be shunted off to St. Catharines, according to what she says here. Yeah. So you have a heart attack, you go to Welland, they stabilize you, then they send you all the way to St. Catharines. Why don't they bring the doctor to you?
But that can happen the next day once you've stabilized.
You don't know. When heart attacks are funny things. Like, it's not easy to stabilize somebody. My mother-in-law died of a heart attack after she was stabilized. We got a call that she's stabilized, and so we decided to go all the way to Strathroy to see her. When we got there, they told us she was dead.
Yeah,
so.
But that happens. That could happen even if that person was in St. Catharines.
I suppose, but my own. It seems to be a lot of moving around. I get the idea that areas would be specialized. I get that, and it is probably a good thing to have certain hospitals specialized in the region. But it's a lot of moving around. And what she says here is basically, how are you going? Hello, Port Colborne. Hello, Fort Erie. Hello, everyone. But how are you going to get your patients to the hospital? That's not up to us. That's not up to Niagara Health. That's up to you, municipality. What are you going to do? You've got 4 years to get there. Randy West says, where are the rebuilding space for convalescent care? Not all medical is emergency. That's correct. Yeah, where is the convalescence at?
We were talking emergency then. I recognize exactly what Randy is saying here. We were talking emergency there because actually that heart attack taking place in a rural township in Port Colborne, where you take that patient is a big question. Do you try to stabilize? Here's the question. If you've got a paramedic on board an ambulance and they manage to stabilize that person just about as you get to Welland, do you continue on to St. Catharines to make sure they're in the right place?
I don't know that's something, to be honest. That's all just guesswork by you right now.
I didn't expect you to answer that question, Dave. I did not expect you to answer that question. You're not suitably qualified. No disrespect to you. You're not a healthcare.
I've got a van, but I'm not taking anyone to the hospital.
Exactly. You're not a paramedic. You're not the person. You're not the ambulance driver. You're not the person who can make that decision as to whether it's safe to take that person. Take that person, reroute that person to St. Catharines, right? But absolutely, that is a question that will come up at that particular time.
Well, right now, what she is saying basically is we're going to have to get used to the 3 hospital system. And as Randy says, we're going to have to get used to less beds, less abilities for convalescence. But also what Guerrero is saying is we have to get the idea that it's not up to us to get you here. It's going to be up to the municipalities. So she's calling out there and saying, look, it's up to the municipalities to make it easy and convenient to get to the hospital. When they close up the hospitals in Port Colborne and Fort Erie, the Douglas Medical, right? That leaves them no option but to get to Welland, Niagara Falls, or St. Catharines, and they're going to go to the hospital that's the closest and easy to get to. But how is the region going to adapt to the idea that there are only 3 places you can go and you have to get there, snow, sun, or rain? And how is the municipalities and how is the region going to adapt to that?
Yeah. And most of the time when it comes to that, I think that's a fair question. That's an issue. And a lot of the time it actually comes down to the person, who's having the problem. For example, you just fell down a ladder and broke your arm. Chances are, hey, your wife's going to pick you up and take you to the hospital, right? Just talking about the average person, not you, Dave. All right. So you fell down a ladder, you broke your arm. Your wife's just going to bundle you in the car and take you to the hospital. Throw your latest book in the bag and give you some reading material, and you'll be in the hospital for however long it takes in order to get your arm set, right? Majority of that, we're so used to not calling the ambulance anymore. It's different. It's different on a job site because job sites generally pay for ambulance service anyway.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that at all. Really, just that I don't. Seriously, I would just go back to what she is trying to point out, right?
Yeah, it
That
is.
you're,
It's correct.
yeah.
You're correct. I'm just saying the extension of that is that to a large extent for minor injuries, most people will jump in the car and get there themselves, type of thing.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well, we're not
and
talking about them, are we?
yeah, but for example, let's say that you were a shelf collapsed in your workplace and buried you under a pile of stuff. Well, obviously they're going to call an ambulance, but what is going to happen there is the company pays for the ambulance. So the ambulance service will arrive and will take you to the relevant hospital.
Yeah. Don't count on it. Don't count on it. You might get the ambulance bill. But doesn't matter. What are you going to do if the shelf falls down in Florida during a snowstorm, a blizzard? Now, how is that community going to get you? What is there to provide you to get you to the closest hospital? What is there?
Yeah.
There is. That's the biggest problem I can see.
And she's right. She's right that is actually a problem that the municipalities have to consider.
Yeah.
Do they need to produce more ambulance crews? That's a good question.
Well, we're out of time now, and I would just like to point out an article that we should be talking about on Monday. Will it be a Monday?
Yeah, there'll be Monday. We'll be a Monday. I'm going to work Monday.
Okay, so there will be a Monday, despite the fact that it's Easter. So there's an article I found this morning that I found super interesting, and that we should talk about. And if anyone's out there who would like to prepare themselves for this is quite interesting, actually. Niagara-on-the-Lake Library Board CEO fires Kathy Simpson. CEO Kathy Simpson was fired for an article she put. She for an article she put in wrote in response to something by a group called FAIR, which is a multi-denominational. Basically, it's any race, any Republican and Democrat thing, and she kind of wrote an article, and the group is called For Fair, and the group is called FAIR, a non-profit organization that is that says it's against intolerance and racism, but it fights things like critical race theory, which is supposed to be a kind of anti-racist thing. They're saying it's a racist thing. It instead favors rooting them in liberalism and providing for a program along those lines. They're worried about the ethnic, critical race theories and other things like that. And they, some of the library staff feel that it was a right-wing organization, although it claims itself not to be. But she was, she's one of these people who believe in free speech, and So that I would just sort of try to prepare. I've never heard of FAIR before, so that's why I just want everybody sort of prepare if they want to learn anything about it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's fine. Yeah, we can talk about that Monday. Okay. We also want to talk about the state of the region Monday as well.
Indeed.
Yeah. Because unfortunately we ran out of time on that. I'd like to have gotten into it for at least 10 minutes worth. All right.
Right.
So coming back to those two things Monday.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody. And Dave?
Without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace. Please.